Hey, how are you doing? Good to see you. It's busy. It's, I guess, formerly invertebrate ecology. I'm the invertebrate ecologist, although I refuse to be labeled. I'll still do birds.
Yeah, and to be fair, a cladistic invertebrate would have to include the vertebrates.
There you go. That's what I tell my students.
They're just invertebrates. Just most of the animals look like them. Of course, you're gonna like the small portion that.
Alrighty, everybody, welcome to our lunchtime seminar. Thank you so much for being here. The SBOs are hosting this one, so feel free to go ahead and grab a snack, and thank you again for being here. Today, Dr. Gerick Bergsma is going to talk to us about scientific opportunities for undergrads and how you can work them into your graduate level research, so let's all give him a warm welcome.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much. So, I'm Dr. Gerick Bergsma. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Marine Science at CSUMB. I think you guys are probably pretty familiar with our campus. I've been on the campus in various positions now for a little over 15 years. Mostly teaching, but kind of a common thread throughout my career is I've always been really engaged in undergraduate research and internship experiences. So for those who might be familiar, I worked for a number of years in various positions with the Undergraduate Research Opportunity Center. For the past decade or so, I've been the faculty advisor for our science internship program. I've led a number of grant-funded research opportunities, including our RU program for a number of years. And now I have a NOAA grant for a climate workforce development fellowship program that I'm helping lead. And for me, it's near and dear to my heart because as an undergraduate, it was these sorts of opportunities that really propelled me on my career path and really let me kind of explore my interests. And my guess is that's true for a lot of you too. Just by a show of hands, how many of you as undergraduates participated in research? So it's pretty universal. For those who raise your hands, how many of you was it a positive experience? Again, pretty universal. Anybody have any negative experiences? Only me, really? I had both, but that's good, right? And my guess is a large part of the reason why you're here today was because of the ideas and the goals you set through those experiences. It's what we call a high impact practice. And there's lots of data that supports that students that engage in internships, students that engage in undergraduate research, they graduate more frequently, right? They stick to it. We see greater success post-graduation, both in terms of getting into graduate school and entering the workforce. It's kind of a win-win all around. And at least for me, this was formative, and I couldn't really pay my mentors back for the value they imparted to me. So this is really kind of a case where pay it forward works in practice, right? Where, as you become researchers in your own right, I won't say it's an obligation, it's in many ways an honor to then provide that training and those opportunities for future generations. As you know, CSUMB and the Moss Landing Marine Laboratories, we're closely linked, but as distinct entities. Unfortunately, sometimes that means it gets a little confusing for potential mentors here who might like to mentor an undergraduate. It's very confusing often for undergraduates who don't know anything about the opportunities here at the labs. So my goal today is really to start kind of a conversation with all of you to start bridging that gap so that you're aware of if you choose to become a mentor and mentor undergraduate researchers, you have some basic information on how to do so. And certainly to make sure you're aware of the resources we have on our campus that you can reach out to help connect you with students and help support you as mentors if you choose to do so. Does that make sense? So just out of curiosity, all of you have had undergraduate research opportunities. How many of you have mentored an undergraduate in your research? Far fewer. How many of you would potentially be interested or like to? Perfect. Why? What are your motivations? I'm curious. Yeah. You want some grunt work, some labor. that's a real benefit to you, and it, if done properly, can be a big benefit to a student. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was saying just like mostly like data analysis, like learning to use image tables or correctly formatting.
Yeah. Yeah, those are valuable skills to learn. And are you learning those with a potential mentee, or are those skills you already feel confident in? Good, that's fantastic. So you've got knowledge to impart. You want to share your skills and training. What other motivations do you have? None? Just sounds cool. How many of you feel like it is something giving back to your profession? Yeah, that's a big part of it, right? So I think I'm speaking, preaching to the choir here, so I won't belabor these points. But the idea is that a good mentorship experience is reciprocal and beneficial to the mentor and the mentee. All of you having had your own undergraduate experiences, and all of you raising your hands saying you had a positive experience, tells me that you probably understand this column quite well. Is my laser pointer working, right? Right? What do the mentees get? They're building skills and knowledge. They're exploring career paths and academic interests, right? They're building their resume so that they can apply to other things, apply to graduate programs, apply to jobs, and access those opportunities with greater success. For the mentors, there's a lot of benefit as well. One of the obvious ones being it strengthens your research. This is a pool of labor, and particularly for those of you with laboratory or field-intensive research, which my guess is most of you, extra hands can be quite useful as long as they're able to be trained and commit to the work you're needing. But there's other big benefits, right? There's career benefits for all of you. Project management, supervisory experience. These are all things that are needed in the workforce and that you can start to build, right? And kind of on a larger front, this really extends your impact as a scientist and a researcher. So all of these are potential motivations for why you should at least consider mentoring undergraduates. So how the heck do you do it? Well, you guys are a graduate program here. You don't have a lot of organic interactions with undergraduates here. So I like to say we're your nearby home campus as opposed to your more distant home campus. If you want pools of undergraduates that can potentially get out here and help, we're there, but you have to know a little bit about our campus. Now, I see plenty of familiar faces, so I know some of you are very familiar with our campus and probably some of these programs, but I just want to kind of give you the lay of the land, right? So most of the research done here at kind of the Moss Landing Marine Labs, this would fall in connection with our programs in the College of Science. In the College of Science, there's a number of majors and departments. The most obvious connections lie with our marine science program, which feeds directly into the marine labs here. We do have other majors, though, and it's good for you to at least be aware of the types of students that CSUMB has and attracts. In addition to our marine science major, we have an applied environmental science major. This is, a pretty traditional environmental science that covers a lot more kind of terrestrial ecology, earth sciences. We have, I think, a really strong program in geospatial analysis and remote sensing. So if you're using those tools, you want someone trained with ArcGIS, that program, as well as the marine science program, both graduate students that are conversant in geospatial analysis. We also have our biology, agriculture, and chemistry department. That's a new name. Some of you might just know it as biology or biology and chemistry, but now we've added agriculture in there. For the labs here, the most pertinent major within that department is our biology major, which includes both kind of a microbiology type focus and also an organismal biology, kind of more ecology type focus. So there's concentrations within there as well. If you're doing chemistry, then our chemistry program might be of interest to you. We do not currently have a chemistry major, but we do have a chemistry minor. So a lot of our students are getting good chemistry lab skills as well. So those three are probably the big three that would have students most excited and eager to come out here and engage in research here at the labs. We do have 3 other kind of schools and departments within the College of Science, though, that have students with very particular skill sets that might be useful to you. That includes our School of Computing and Design. So if you have computation-heavy, data analysis, they have students trained with much more programming and basic computer skills. Mathematics and Statistics is a program obviously focused on math. If any of you are particularly into modeling or kind of advanced statistical techniques, that might be attractive to students in our math majors. And then we have a brand new major in mechatronics engineering. This one is new enough that I don't feel quite comfortable describing it. It was inspired basically as an engineering program to serve the needs of both our local agricultural industries and our local marine research industries in developing robotics and automatic systems. The faculty currently are a little more heavily on the ag side. That seems to be the emphasis in terms of their early growth. So this is, designing and implementing automative systems for, things like produce processing in the ag sector. But we do have a lot of students coming in who are interested in marine science. They come to CSUMB because they know we have a strong marine science program, but they also like the engineering aspect. So again, if you are into building devices, into robotics, anything like that, there might be some opportunity through students in that program as well. So those are kind of what our students are learning and emphasizing. And you can potentially advertise across all of these to find the students with the right mix of interests and skills for you. So then, how do you actually reach out to these? Now, you're absolutely welcome to come onto campus with your sandwich board and write your research topic on it and walk around, but you probably don't have time to do that. So we have undergraduate programs that are meant to develop students into competent researchers, right? So we have kind of this kind of scaffolded approach to getting students engaged in primary research. And that starts in their coursework, right? So at CSUMB, we have a lot of hands-on courses. It starts early in their career, so you can kind of read my little chart here as, think of this as like first year, second year, third year, fourth year going down, and they're developing their research skills. And in their curricular work, they start off with seminars and things like freshman experiences that are kind of exploring, majors, exploring career options. That usually then leads into their upper division work in laboratory and field courses. So often that's a nice hot spot to hit, because these are students who are freshly gaining some experiences, freshly gaining some skills, and you can always reach out to faculty of those courses, including me. I teach a course in marine biodiversity, and I'm happy to advertise to the students and send students your way. So that's one avenue. But remember, these high impact practices, they don't always neatly fit into our curricular offerings, right? So how do students get these experiences? And again, you guys know this as well as anyone because you've done them. Well, you get involved in research in a professor's lab, right? That's what I'm calling kind of a co-curricular activity here. Or you're applying to RUs and summer research programs, right? These are these kind of paracurricular activities. And students can find these on their own oftentimes if they know where to look. But we actually have specific programs to help students, right, jump the gap and find these programs and competitively apply to them. And our two kind of flagship programs are the Undergraduate Research Opportunity Center and the Science Internship Program. They overlap a lot. We'll kind of talk about the differences, but both of these programs are there to help students gain access to these opportunities. And just as importantly for you, we help advertise opportunities to our students. So those of you who may not have the budget of an RU or the connections to advertise your research, these serve you as well as potential mentors because we're there to help you develop and advertise ideas that we can advertise to the students and help you with the application processes as well if you'd like. Any questions about this? I'll go into the programs in more detail. But does this make sense to everyone? All right. So let's talk about these programs. And I'll get into more depth about what each program actually does, but I thought it would be good at the start to kind of distinguish the two, right? If you've got a Venn diagram of these programs, there's a lot of overlap, but they do have slightly different emphases. UROC, the Undergraduate Research Opportunity Center, is really there as a program to get students engaged in research. They are not disciplinary focused. So if any of you are doing humanities research or social science research, they're happy to plug in psychologists or the psychology department or the business programs, right? They're cross-disciplinary, but the core is academic research. Any student going through UROC has to engage in academic research. And the commitment there is they want to develop them into the next generation of grad students and the next generation of scientists. So they want them to holistically develop knowledge of the research process. For most of those students, what that means is they're going to go on to present that research. So if you take on a UROC student, you want to be aware of that, right? They need to be familiar enough with the research as a whole that they can go present a poster at a minimum at our on-campus CSUMB Research Symposium, but I'm even more excited when we can send students off to conferences and other places to present the research. So this is more of a traditional undergraduate research program with the aim to train students up to talk about research. This is probably the best fit for most of you, I would guess, since you're engaged in research and thinking about your theses and research projects pretty holistically. And it really focuses on participating in the entire research process. All right. The science internship program, on the other hand, does have a disciplinary focus. We are focused on STEM. We serve the College of Science, so the students in the departments and majors I just shared with you. So we will not get you business students, we will not get you psychology students, but any of the sciences and the math and engineering, we're good to serve you. The goal here, though, is much more professional in nature. Our goal is to get students out into professional experiences where they're building disciplinary skills, knowledge, and abilities. Okay? If it's research, great, but it doesn't have to be research. So one of the many hats I wear on our campus is I'm the curator of our biological collection. I need students to help me with my curatorial activities, okay? It's not research per se, it's certainly research adjacent. They're learning research skills, but they can't really go to a conference and present, here are my findings, because their findings are, I ID'd and cataloged a bunch of shells, right? So in that case, I usually funnel those students to the science internship program. So if you have something that is maybe not research at its core, but still building research skills, that's still a valuable experience for students. This is probably the better home for it. And this program is also, since it doesn't serve just research, much more traditional internships with, right, agencies and businesses and the community. And so towards that end, it's a little more flexible. We don't have quite as much structure for the students, but we want them to kind of connect whatever they're doing in their internships back to their academics at CSUMB. So we have them enroll in a course. I teach most of those courses. And they basically do assignments that are connecting what they're doing with their internship, kind of what they're learning at CSUMB. So both of these provide support for the students, helping them think about and engage, but they do have slightly different groups that they serve and slightly different requirements and outcomes. But in both of these cases, the goal is to get them connected with people who are going to help them develop professionally and as researchers. Does that make sense? All right, so let's just summarize each one individually. We'll start with the science internship program. Like I say, any professional experience works here. The primary motivation for students to engage in this program is they earn credit. So they can sign up, pretty much any experience, paid or unpaid, they can still earn credit so long as they commit a certain number of hours. So the minimum is 45 hours for 1 unit of credit, so that's 1 semester hour. They can earn up to 2 units if they're doing 90 hours or more. And then, like I say, there is some coursework associated with this meant to support their thinking about what they're doing and its connections to their academics. In addition to that, we do offer professional development workshops and events. We'll be hosting a internship and career fair, I think next month, for example, where we'll be having partners come in to advertise opportunities for students. So that's a great venue to connect with students. If the internship program is an avenue you're interested in pursuing and you want to advertise for the internship program, it's a pretty simple process. So Science Internship Program, acronym is SIP. You want to get to our webpage, it's just csumb.edu/SIP. And when you get there, I have to apologize. We just had a revamp. We have a new website, and it's beautiful but terrible. It's hard to find stuff on it. But if you look, and this is a screenshot here, there'll be this little menu on the left. And if you have an opportunity, if it's ready to go and you want to advertise to students, you just click on this Advertise Opportunity link, and then you'll see this page here, and if you scroll down right below the pretty picture, there'll be this link for the new internship position form. This is literally just a Google form that asks you for basic information about the opportunity. We then advertise it. We have a couple of avenues for advertising it. A, we maintain a database that students can access. It's just like a Google Doc that they can go and look for it. We send it out through all of our College of Science social media, including our Currents newsletter. Depending on the opportunity, we might also pass it on to UROC to help advertise, or to relevant departments. So the Marine Science Department at times has had its own independent newsletter as well. And so we get the information out and then try to provide links for whatever process you want to engage in for interviewing and evaluating students. And for the most part, through the internship program, you're kind of in charge of what that process looks like. Usually the students would apply directly to you, and we just need some forms filled out. The student would have to apply to the program once they've gotten the opportunity to enroll in the course and get credit for that experience. Does that make sense? Any questions about the science internship program? Okay, so again, that's just csumb.edu.sip. This is probably the easiest one, right? And even if the students don't enroll in units, we're still happy to advertise opportunities. So if all you want to do is just get words out about an opportunity, it can be volunteer opportunities, it can be paid opportunities, right? We're happy to advertise that through this new internship position form. Yeah?
Can I ask, like, for an example, with the one that you did for your curatorial stuff,
Mhm.
do you put in information about requirements, or like time requirements, or do you put, is it a syllabus, because you said this is a course?
Well, the course is separate from the internship experience. So they will enroll in a course that has a syllabus with the assignments they have to do. But yes, it's a good idea to have a description of the overall position, the duties and responsibilities you'd expect from the intern, the time commitment, that's a big one, and then any other additional information for how to apply, what sorts of information you want from them, a resume, that sort of thing. And the Google form steps you through that so that you have to kind of include certain bits of information. But yeah, but it's interesting you ask, because for faculty, this rarely gets used. So our program in general will allow any student engaged in internships or research to earn credit. So for my curation positions, I usually have already had conversations and identified students. I never advertise those positions because I have so many students coming to me. So for those, and again, if you guys already have students, or you organically find a student, you can just say, hey, if you want credit, go talk to the science internship program. They can still apply, whether we've advertised it or not. They're welcome to come to the internship program and earn credit for those experiences. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Any questions? All right. Probably our flagship program, and one that I think aligns well with the research that goes on here, is our Undergraduate Research Opportunity Center. Again, the core here is kind of holistic integration into the research process. So here, the emphasis is much more on mentored research. A lot of it is faculty mentored, but you don't have to be faculty to mentor. The twist is, if you're a graduate student, we do ask that your advisor sign off on you mentoring. They need to be knowledgeable that you're doing so. But we've got mentored research experiences. What's nice about UROC is it's limited, but they do have some funding to support students as well. So rather than credit being the carrot, in some cases, students can apply for and get a little bit of funding to support them, usually in the form of a stipend. For many research programs, and we'll talk about the programs that UROC supports, there's additional money for things like sending undergraduates to conferences. So that's a big incentive. I tell any student doing research with me, apply to UROC. And I don't I mean, they probably care, but I don't care if they get the stipend or not. My goal is I want to be able to send them to a conference. So for me, that's probably the, on the mentor side, the biggest carrot is they can potentially go and get funded to go to WSN or other conferences. And then again, this is much more focused on grad school preparation, particularly in their main program, the Scholars Program, which I'll describe in a minute. Now, unlike SIP, which is pretty much one program, UROC is kind of an umbrella center that houses several programs. And this often gets confusing both for students and for potential mentors. In the end, you don't need to worry about these distinctions. I'll describe them. You can still engage in UROC, and they'll kind of direct you to what applies. But their main programs that they have going all the time are the Scholars and Researchers Program. The Scholars Program is specifically targeting students who identify early on that they want to go on and earn a PhD. That is their target audience. They apply in their sophomore year, and they commit to a 2-year program that involves a series of seminar courses. So they have a seminar each semester, kind of training them and introducing them to academia at large. And as part of that, they're funded for 2 summer research experiences. Now, for the most part, they're telling these students, go apply to REUs, because then it's not their money they have to spend on those students. But the students can go elsewhere. That doesn't have to be a formal REU type program. So these are usually pretty high achieving, pretty committed students. From the mentor's side, the trick is they're kind of getting a lot of pressure and ideas from UROC. So you as a mentor don't always get to hang on to the student, right? You might mentor them for a semester or 2, and then they're off to an RU somewhere because UROC is, saying they should get that experience. But these are great students. This kind of serves as a de facto honors program at CSUMB, where a lot of the higher achieving students kind of come into this program. So this is a great place to connect with students, and again, these are very much seeking mentors who are going to guide them. So when they enter this program, they are paired with a faculty advisor, so kind of a faculty mentor, and then on top of that, they will have research mentors, and their goal is really to develop them up to the point where they can apply to research-based graduate programs. All right, so that's intensive. Because of that, it's limited in how many students it can serve. So the bigger program numerically is actually the researchers program, and this is my baby. This is the one I developed when I was at UROC. And this is basically semester by semester supporting and funding students engaged in undergraduate research. Students apply every semester. They're accepted. Depending on their demographics and which particular grants we have active at a time, some may or may not get funded. There's not guaranteed funding. But we can fund many of the students. And this is probably the program where the most students, would be able to come and engage with you here at Moss Landing. These are, students who, for the most part, are staying local. These we're not really pushing to go to RUs, although we encourage them all to apply to RUs. There's not kind of the expectation that they'll go. And so we engage with a lot of undergraduates, both on our labs at CSUMB and in the local area through the researchers program. So both of these have, these guarantees funding. This has the potential for funding. Students in either of those programs also are eligible to apply for, consumables, research expenses, and apply for funding to go to conferences. Now they do have a couple of other programs. The Research Rookies is one that's mostly about students kind of self-guiding exploration to look for research opportunities. That's not really a program that in itself places students. But they also have this iCare program, where this is now a funded program for community college students to get funded to engage in research. They're always looking for mentors for this. This is a summer-only program, but if you're interested in supporting younger students, this is a great program because these are community college students, usually that intend to transfer, and we're trying to get our hooks in them and encourage them to come to CSUMB. You can certainly be a part of that program as well. And then I just have some logos over here just from some of the major funding. About half of the scholars are funded through the McNair Scholars Program. We do have additional funding from, I I think we're not supposed to say that it's Apple anymore. They gave it a new name, the Innovation Scholars, right, that fund students. We've got several grants that are funding students in the Scholars and Researchers program. Cool. Any questions about any of those? All right, so what if you want to get engaged in UROC? Again, you got to navigate our beautiful but confusing website. For UROC, you go to csumb.edu/UROC, no problem. Then you have to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll until you find a link that says Getting Started with Research. Easy enough, right? Because you guys are just getting started with research, I'm sure, right? Then it becomes a little more intuitive. Then there's going to be this menu, once you get to that page, with Become a Mentor. Click on that, and you'll see this blue button down here. This is the project intake form. It's very similar to the science internship program form. So again, it's going to ask for some basic information. Their emphasis is a little more focused on what the research is, though. So here, you'll want to have a better description of the research, right? Kind of the main research goals. You know, anyone who's already submitted their proposal for their thesis research, you're well set for this. But if you're not at that level, you'll want to have thought through what is the overall project a bit more thoroughly. And obviously, you want to understand what you're going to be having the students do. Any questions about UROC? All right. With UROC, there's also multiple waves of application. So for the science internship program, anytime you have an opportunity, fill out the form. We can pretty much get students started as early as the following semester in terms of enrolling in the course. They can actually start with you anytime. The bigger limitation is on the undergrad when they will enroll in the course. For UROC, there's much more stringent kind of timelines. And it's timed basically by when you want to have that researcher in place. So if you want to, get an undergraduate for summer, all right, March is when they're starting to look for opportunities to advertise, right? And by April, that's when they're opening the application portal to students, right? So you got to be ready in a couple of months if you want help next summer, right? For fall, for spring, there's similar timelines. They have these listed on their website. And for each of these, what they're going to do is when you create, an opportunity, it's going to go onto this platform called the Student Opportunity Center. So this is a searchable database. It's actually a national database, but we pay so that we can have our own little carved out corner that's only accessible to CSUMB students. So we post those there, and students can search and find these opportunities there. And through these application processes, they're directed to look for opportunities there if they haven't already connected with a researcher. Now, for UROC, this is the much more common point of entry, right? Again, kind of like SIP, if you already have a student, you can always encourage them to go talk to UROC, and UROC can work them into the system. That's not a barrier. But the kind of formal advertisement and application process is much more common with UROC. The other advantage to UROC is depending on the program, you can kind of dump off the application process and interviewing process on the UROC staff. So if you just want to be like, hey, send me a good student, they can do the selection processes and direct students to you. So that's one advantage to UROC. It's a little more full service. Of course, if you prefer to get all the applications and review them yourself, that's no problem either. Cool. And I know a few of you worked through SIP and UROC, and do you guys have any comments on your experiences?
UROC is great. It was
Yeah.
super intuitive, and it got students funding, so they stuck around.
Yeah. It is a huge accelerant for students heading towards graduate school, and they provide a lot of services to help students with applications and grad school applications down the road, that sort of thing. Excellent. You guys feel good with UROC? All right. So this is a 1-hour seminar, right? So I wasn't sure how long it would take me to get through that. So I've got a bunch of slides here from a 2-hour mentor training workshop that I do. We do not have time for me to get through all of it. I'm happy to keep talking about kind of elements of mentoring, but maybe this is better to, if there's interest, come back and actually run the workshop at some point. But as part of this, right, it isn't just we want opportunities for our students, we also want opportunities for you, right, to learn processes of mentoring and supervision and support you as much as possible. So towards that end, there's lots and lots of online resources, and all I've done is read through a bunch of them and pick and choose different ideas and put them on slides. None of this is really original thinking on my part. But, since you guys experienced it, you probably already have models in your head of what makes a good mentor. So I'll open that to you guys. What makes a good mentor? Yeah.
I would say mostly approachable, because a lot of undergrads are sometimes intimidated just to ask who's their opportunities.
They're intimidated, and you are this imposing figure with great power in their view. You might not feel that way right now, but you are, right? That's especially true with certain types of students. We get a lot of first-generation students. They have no real experience in academia, and they don't have personal connections with that knowledge, right? We have a very multicultural campus. Many cultures have strict social hierarchies that make it imposing for them to, right, question those above them or even approach those that they view at a higher level. So approachability is huge, and a lot of that stems from direct communication at the outset. I've been told I can be really intimidating to students. I think I'm fine, right? But with that knowledge, right, I try to go out of my way to make sure students understand that they can come talk to me, that I'm there as a resource. So that's important. What else? What other hallmarks come to mind? Think back to who your mentors were. What did they do that you liked? And we have a mic, I guess, we're passing around if anyone has any comment. To make it more intimidating for you guys to engage. Yeah.
I've always appreciated when mentors asked me questions like, does this make sense, or what do you have questions about, to either gauge my understanding and how they were doing as a mentor, as well as see what I was interested in too.
Yeah, and that goes both ways. They're often learning to be mentors as part of the process. That communication is critical, and that is very valuable. Think back to your undergraduate research experience. How many of you had a clear knowledge of this is what I'm being brought on to do? Or how many of you were like, what am I supposed to do? I'm not sure what the expectations are. How many of you thought it was clear when you got there, like, I know what my role is? Oh, so we're not 100% there. So that means some of you struggled to understand expectations. That can be a big one. How many of you were cognizant and knowledgeable about social hierarchies in academia? When you were in undergraduate research, do you understand, right, the relative position and power of, say, tenure-track faculty versus adjunct, or postdocs versus, graduate students? Right?
Still don't know what associate means.
I won't say anything. Right? The idea, though, is right, undergrads come in not understanding things that you're expected to know as a graduate student, right? They might not know when you start talking about your advisor or your PI. What does that mean? Right? So a lot of it is also just building basic knowledge and information. So I'm running out of time quickly here, but we'll just go through a couple of the first slides, and we'll leave the details to your imagination, right? But to lead a successful, right, mentor-mentee relationship, you got to build some groundwork here, right? You've got to prepare. That includes you as a potential mentor being proactive in looking for students and understanding what kinds of students you mesh with interpersonally and what types of students will serve your needs, right? You have to define in your head, what do I want, right? Then you have to communicate clearly, and a big part of that early on is establishing expectations. What are different people's roles in the lab? What is the student expected to do? What can they expect me as their mentor to do? right? So a lot of this is communications. There will inevitably be problems and confusion, right? So then it's you thinking sometimes very creatively and sometimes, right, collaboratively, both with the student and with your advisors, on how can we solve these. One of the most common conflicts that comes up is schedules. You guys need stuff done. You have certain times of the day where you can do it. Well, students have their coursework, they have jobs, they have other things going on. That can be really hard to balance, and sometimes that means some flexibility and creative on both parts and clear conversations about priorities, right? And then when problems do come up, knowing where both you as the mentor and the mentee can turn for help. That's where these programs are often very helpful, right? When I was working at UROC, I had countless conversations where mentors were like, I'm struggling with a student. I don't know what to do, and I would talk to the mentor, I would talk to the mentee, I would serve as an intermediary in many cases, trying to help, bring resolution to whatever conflicts arose. So having, people on your team, people on your side can be really important, and knowing who those people are. Here's just some tips. Maybe I'll send these slides. Are these details of interest to you guys? Okay, I'll send these slides, but just some tips on, all right, I got a mentee, what now? And it's good often to, have formal meetings with them and immediately set tasks for them. Oftentimes this is tricky. At least when I do research, I don't really know what I'm going to do until I'm doing it. So they're like, what am I going to do? I'm like, I don't know, I still have to figure it out. But it's good to have kind of ready to go tasks that you can set them on that are going to be productive for you and useful for the student, right? That can often be things like online training modules, right? Developing kind of literature reviews. You can have them draft proposals if they're going to be developing an independent project. These are immediate things they can start working on that immediately engages them and often leads to productive conversations that help you as the mentor clarify exactly what you're doing with this mentee and gives the mentee, right, some tangible results early on. Then you have to manage this relationship, right? As the mentor, you are the supervisor, right? You're the boss. And that involves a lot of relationship building and maintaining relationships and a lot of clear communication. So these, again, are just kind of tips for how do you manage this. Probably for me, mostly because I'm scattered and I struggle to keep my own schedule in line. Having students keeping track of their hours and making formal appointments when they need to meet with me becomes really important. You want to keep track of the students, so weekly meetings or regular meetings are pretty important. If you have many mentees, aggregating those is important, right? The lab meeting. I always say I'm going to have one. Never get all the schedules aligned, but, right? These are all kind of tips and strategies for how do we keep track of what's going on, how do we keep in contact, because what happens if you don't keep that contact up, then in the mentee's mind, you're not prioritizing the project and they won't prioritize your project. Suddenly they're busy studying or doing other things because they're not really sure what they're supposed to do, right? So that's important. And then finally, the rest of the workshop is really focused then on some core principles, right, that lead to effective mentoring. And there's a lot of overlap. We've talked about a lot of these before, but clear expectations are really important, right? Introducing students to all facets of the research project and the research process is important, right? From reading literature to conducting data collection to analysis to dissemination. All of those, ideally can be built into projects. Assessing your students' understanding is really important. You got to know where they're coming from, what they know, and much harder, what they don't know, because they want you to think they got it all put together. They don't. They think you've got it all put together, even if you don't. So kind of really checking both ways. Do you understand this, right? And not just saying, do you understand it, because they might say yes even if they don't, but then testing for that. Having them communicate to you and explain to you what they'll be doing is often very fruitful. And then finally, to really develop researchers, right, we want them to be able to do this independently. So scaffolding and creating, kind of training and development opportunities that eventually get weaned away, right? So that they're ultimately responsible for and conducting the research independently. That's the win for everyone, because that means they're now competent, and it means that's the least amount of work for you to get the work done, right? All right, so I'm running out of time. I want to leave time for any questions that may remain, but pretty much the rest of my slides that I'll send out if you guys are interested are just touching on these various points. All right, well, thank you guys.
If anyone has questions, I'll come with the quiet microphone. It doesn't amplify your voice, but people who are online can hear you.
Hey, Jerick. Thanks for coming to talk again. I have a question about back to the science internship program, UROC divide. Is there any sort of double dipping? Like if I have a student who's in a science internship program, but I want to send them to WSN, could they then apply for funding from UROC?
Yes. What I would recommend everyone, the default should probably be UROC, because it provides the most support to the student. But we can provide credit to UROC students through the science internship program. And a lot of students, a lot of undergrads, even though I tell them repeatedly, don't get that. And what happens is UROC is its own entity, and they have their own classes that some students can sign up for. Those don't count towards upper division electives, whereas the internship credits do. So it's actually beneficial for them to take the internship courses, even if they're in UROC. So it's a bit confusing. You guys don't need to remember all this. Just send them to me and say, hey, go talk to Jerick, because he can sort you out. But yes, students in one program can still apply and get services through the other. The best kind of pathway is UROC first, SIP second, would be my recommendation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, amazing. Sorry I left. I'm not sure if I missed it or not, but since UROC is great at getting undergraduates research opportunities, does UROC also help assign kids getting certifications like AAUS or MOTC certifications as well?
So in limited cases, they may be able to, but not normally. I will mention, because this is particularly prevalent here, is if you're looking for a research diver, then the other program you want to reach out to is our dive program. So for those who don't know, we have the largest science diving program in the country at CSUMB. We have a phenomenally good, but perhaps overly stringent training program. But if you're looking for a diver, we put out a lot of divers who are eager to get experience. You can certainly advertise those opportunities through UROC and through SIP, but it's also worth reaching out to the dive program directly, because then they'll advertise directly to their students, and often these are students in their AAUS class or in the research diving class. So again, I am happy to be an intermediary and funnel people appropriately, but if you're looking for a diver, we mint those. They do that on their own. That's usually not funded through UROC. There are other trainings, though, that might be useful depending on your research. All of our students have access to online trainings through CSU Learn and through the CITY program. I'm not sure if Moss Landing uses the same programs. So that includes, right, if you're NSF funded, you have to do ethics training. All of our students have access and can take the CITY ethics training. If you're working with animals, right, all of our students have access to IACUC trainings. I doubt we have any folks here using IRB, but if you have human subjects, we have IRB trainings, right? We have lab safety trainings, although my guess is to work here, they probably want you to do the Moss Landing ones as opposed to the CSUMB ones. But if that need arises, all of our students have access to the online trainings. If there's other certifications that you got to pay for, they can request from UROC. It really depends on, do they have grants that can appropriately fund that and which program they're in. The scholars get a little preference there to the other types of students.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is maybe actually a comment, if I could say, just from the faculty perspective of, I love having UROC students come, and I really love when my students drive that. It is really helpful to think about letting your faculty know sooner that in the process, because there are behind the scenes paperworky things and like lab safety things that we have to onboard people to. And so in my lab, we've ended up with some interruptions, right? Or delays because we've had to schedule lab trainings and stuff. So it's just part of your process too. Once you have someone coming in, is thinking about just letting your advisor know early. And also, I think I'm looking at Katie, because I think there can be onboarding at a greater process where sometimes if the students want access to library resources, that's other stuff that we can help with. We just need to, you might need to reach out to us.
And I'll add to that this is just a screenshot, but if you scroll down on the page that looks like this, you'll actually hit a section that says, specifically for projects at Moss Landing Marine Labs. And there is a form for any graduate student wanting to take student that you need to get your advisor signature, and then there's additional questions about the resource needs for the students. And particularly here where a lot of lab space is shared, your advisor and whoever runs the lab spaces need to be aware of who's coming and working in those spaces, and if there's specific trainings, you need to make sure that's all cleared before you take on the student. UROC typically won't advertise the position until we get the signed form that says at least your advisor is on board with you having a research student. Excellent.
Okay, yay.
Well, thank you all. I did not put my contact info on here, I'm realizing, but I am happy to be a point of contact and liaison if any of you have any questions or want to connect with these programs. I work closely with them both. So again, I am Gerick Bergsma. Email is probably the most universal way to get a hold of me, and it's just gbergsma@csumb.edu. Or again, you can look up a lot of this information on the Science Internship Program and UROC websites. Great. Well, thank you.
Good to have you here.
Thank you. I don't know if there is interest, but I used to do the workshop here back when I worked at UROC, and it was always pretty well attended, yeah. So.